Hey everyone, name is Bryant. I'm going to be going over a video that is going to show you how to import these corrugated metal substance files, the SBSAR files, and a few of the FBXs, and sort of just go over how to import, how to use the options, and kind of a quick example of what you can make. So first things first, you need to import this stuff. So I like to just not import randomly. I'll create a folder. So let's get this going. So the ones that I'm going to import are the square big. There are 4 different ones. And as you can see here in this folder structure, there is a folder called FBX that has 4 different sort of corrugated sheet variants, and then 2 bent versions, each with slightly more bendiness to them. So I'm bringing in the bent number 2 square big and dropping it in. Now, one thing to make note there, you have to use the Substance Designer bridge between the Substance engine and Unreal 4. So if you don't have that installed, you do need to install it. Otherwise, this next part here where I'm dragging in the SBSAR file that correlates to the square big FBX, it won't import. Unreal won't know what to do with it. So importing here, defaults are usually okay. You can always move these textures around and stuff after the fact, and that's fine. So once this opens, you'll notice a handful of textures come in. There's a couple unique nodes from the Substance people. You have the Substance Graph instance and then the Substance Instance Factory. What you want is the Substance Graph instance, and you'll see the window opens, and there are a number of options that we can go over here. So firstly, we have the 4 different outputs. This is outputting just the basic base color, normal, roughness, metallic. You do have an output size option here. For this example, I'll shoot all the way to 2048. So this material basically gives you the option to put paint on top of a material and define how it wears and scratches and rusts on top of that piece of metal. So by default, it will come in with paint. There is an option to turn off or on paint. But before we get into that, let's get this situated so it can better illustrate what's happening with the material. So as I said, you can turn off the paint, and it expresses basically a basic corrugated metal, sort of a basic metal pattern. You can choose to adjust the metal roughness to your liking. It comes in at 0 by default with additional roughness. But for this example, we'll turn paint back on, and by default, it's going to come in with sort of this tan, sort of, tannish paint. Let's change that up and go with something crazy cool like fuchsia. There are some performance options that you can set in your project preferences once the plugins are installed. Basically giving it a bit more RAM and a bit more access to the different cores that you may have in your processor. So I have it set to, I think, 6 cores and 2 gigs right now for this. But so we got that fuchsia going. Now I've turned this down to basically remove the paint wear, grunge amount, and that type of stuff, because I want to show you just what pure just paint as a surface looks like. So paint wear level and the grunge amount are sort of used in tandem. If you were to just ram the paint wear level all the way to the top to 1, you won't see much of an effect unless you give it a grunge amount. So these sort of work together. And the edge paint and scratch bias, by default, these are edge effects. So they want to exist on the edge of this object. But with this bias, as you get closer to 1, you can actually bias it away from the edge so that it starts to cover a bit more of the object. Edge rusting, this can be touchy if you don't have paint on it, if you have the paint turned off. So as you can see, I'm already at 0.13. One of the reasons this is so is to allow for a full coverage of rust on this metal sheet. Now the varnish damage is going to be basically applying sort of a bubbly effect on the paint where paint meets rust. So that can be adjusted independently as well. Dirt amount, pretty self-explanatory. This dirt effect naturally wants to just accumulate in the recessed areas of the corrugated metal, so that's where it will start accumulating first. As you start jacking it up and getting much higher, you'll notice that it starts really covering a lot of it. And then lastly, this global effects edge bias is kind of like that previous edge effect, the previous edge bias. This is sort of like a global effect for everything. It's going to basically, any effect that relies on the edge is going to basically try to just really cover everything. So anyway, one of the last things that I'll show you is you have a randomized seed option. So a lot of these things, like I said, are noises. They're patterns that are based in the Substance Designer. So you can click the randomized seed and it'll give you different noise patterns. Now, for the time being, it's generally for just globally for the whole material, but you can get a variety of different options here. So that's an example of just importing and dialing some options in. So if we scoot over to this middle section here, this is essentially what is in the whole pack. You've got 12 different pieces of corrugated metal, different lengths and sizes. There will be a document that is provided to give the approximate lengths and sizes of the corrugated metal and the wooden pieces. And this third section is just an example of, quickly in about 10 minutes, I just put this together, just dropped in a handful of different FBXs and just sort of mashed them together on top of a wall of corrugated, or of the wooden sheets. So I mean, it was pretty quick to pull in and get situated. So that's that. That's the corrugated metal. There is an SBSAR file, 4 of them for each of the wooden materials that are described, and they're imported exactly the same way. And the only difference really between the two is what options there are, and it's really just about dirt control. All right. Well. Thanks for watching, and hope you like this material.